The stars looked different today. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UNS Horizon, watching the massive alien ships move closer to Earth. 3 days ago, these vessels had appeared at the edge of the solar system. 3 days ago, everything had changed for humanity. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the lead vessel," said Communications Officer Beth Taylor. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. Everyone on the bridge felt at first contact with alien life was supposed to be exciting. Instead, it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. "Put it through, Beth." The main screen flickered to life. 2 alien faces appeared. One looked like a giant insect with multiple eyes and clicking mandibles. The other seemed to be made of living crystal, with light dancing inside its translucent body. Jake had seen them before during the initial contact 3 days ago. The insect was Hive Speaker Zakth of the Vraxi. The crystal being was Crystal Mind Veltar of the Threnodi. Human Captain Morrison. Zakth's voice came through the translator with a mechanical buzz. "We trust your leaders have considered our generous offer. The Galactic Coalition awaits your species' response." Jake kept his expression neutral. "Hive Speaker Zakth, Crystal Mind Veltar, thank you for your patience. Our diplomatic team is prepared to meet with you again. Admiral Carter will be joining us shortly." On the alien ship, Zakth's multiple eyes blinked in sequence. He turned to Veltar, and Jake caught part of their whispered conversation through the open channel. The translation was partial, but he heard enough. Still begging for more time, clearly desperate, probably fighting among themselves. Jake said nothing. He had learned long ago that sometimes the most important information came from what people thought you couldn't hear. Admiral Lisa Carter entered the bridge 10 minutes later. She was a tall woman in her 50s, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. Behind her came Dr. Ryan Bell, Earth's leading xenobiologist, and Susan Wright, their cultural attaché. Both looked nervous, but Admiral Carter appeared calm and confident. "Captain Morrison, are our guests ready for the meeting?" Carter asked. "Yes, Admiral. They're waiting in Conference Room 1. "Excellent. Dr. Bell, I want you to observe everything. How they sit, how they move, what they look at. Susan, watch for cultural cues we might have missed. This could be the most important conversation in human history." The conference room had been specially prepared for the meeting. The table was large enough to accommodate different body types. The lighting could be adjusted for different visual spectrums. Environmental controls maintained perfect temperature and atmosphere for all species present. When the human delegation entered, the 2 aliens were already seated. Zakth's insect body was positioned in what humans might call a relaxed pose, but Dr. Bell noticed the way his legs were positioned. It was a dominance display among his species. Veltar's crystalline form pulsed with soft blue light, which Susan Wright knew indicated confidence or superiority. "Welcome aboard the Horizon," Admiral Carter said, taking her seat across from the aliens. "We appreciate your willingness to meet with us again." "The Coalition is patient with new species," Zakth replied. "We understand the process can be overwhelming for primitive civilizations." Dr. Bell caught the word choice. Primitive. He made a mental note. Admiral Carter smiled politely. "We're grateful for your understanding. Could you tell us more about the Coalition's membership requirements?" Veltar's light shifted to a brighter blue. "Requirements are simple for species like yours. You provide raw materials, basic manufacturing, and workers for Coalition projects. In return, we offer protection from hostile forces and access to some of our technology." "That sounds like a generous arrangement," Carter said. "What kind of raw materials would Earth be expected to provide?" "Your planet has adequate mineral resources," Zakth answered. "Your asteroid belt contains useful metals. Your population can be trained for basic industrial tasks." Susan Wright noticed how they talked about humans, not as partners, but as resources to be managed. She kept her expression neutral, but inside she was taking careful notes. "And what would this protection involve?" Carter asked. "The galaxy can be dangerous for weak species. Veltar explained. There are pirates, hostile empires, natural disasters. The Coalition maintains peace through strength. Species under our protection rarely face these problems. Because they're too busy working for you, Dr. Bell thought, but he didn't say it out loud. Admiral Carter nodded thoughtfully. We would need to understand the full scope of these arrangements. Could you provide us with examples of how other species have benefited from Coalition membership? The two aliens exchanged what might have been glances. The Kalari aquatic people now have stable underwater cities, Zakth said. The silicon-based Mendari have improved mining operations. All member species have found their proper place within the Coalition structure. Their proper place, Susan Wright repeated mentally. Another interesting phrase. That's wonderful to hear, Carter said. We're always interested in learning from successful partnerships. Would it be possible to speak directly with representatives from these species? Veltar's light flickered slightly. Coalition communication protocols make such contacts difficult to arrange. The Hive speaker and I can provide all necessary information about member benefits. Dr. Bell found that answer suspicious. Why wouldn't they want humans talking to other member species? The meeting continued for 2 hours. The aliens outlined their version of Coalition membership, while the humans asked polite, detailed questions. Carter inquired about trade routes, territorial boundaries, and cultural exchange programs. Dr. Bell asked about scientific cooperation and technology sharing. Wright explored questions about maintaining human cultural identity within the Coalition structure. Throughout the discussion, the aliens grew more confident. They saw the humans' careful questions as signs of a weak species trying to negotiate, from a position of desperation. Zakth and Veltar began speaking more freely, mentioning how other species had learned their place and how compliance training helped new members adapt to Coalition expectations. When the formal meeting ended, Admiral Carter stood and extended her hand. Thank you both for this informative discussion. Humanity appreciates the Coalition's generous consideration of our membership application. Both aliens looked at the extended hand with what might have been confusion. Handshakes weren't part of their cultures, but they had learned it was a human gesture of respect or submission. We expect your species' decision soon, Zakth said. The Coalition's patience has limits. Of course, Carter replied smoothly. We wouldn't want to keep such a powerful alliance waiting. We're honored by your attention. After the aliens left, the human delegation remained in the conference room. Dr. Bell was the first to speak. Did anyone else notice how they talked about other species? Found their proper place? Compliance training? Learned their place? This doesn't sound like an alliance. It sounds like conquest with better marketing. Susan Wright nodded. Their body language was all wrong too. They weren't negotiating with equals. They were explaining terms to subordinates. Admiral Carter leaned back in her chair. What did you think of their technology, Ryan? Dr. Bell looked puzzled for a moment, then understood. Their ships are impressive from a distance, but up close, the hull design is inefficient. Their communication systems are at least 50 years behind ours. And did you see how long it took their translators to process complex sentences? I noticed that too, Carter said. Captain Morrison, what's your assessment of their military capabilities? Jake Morrison had been quiet during most of the meeting, but he had been watching and listening. Their ships are large, but they're not maneuverable. The weapon signatures our sensors picked up are powerful but crude. They rely on overwhelming force rather than precision. If I had to guess, they've never fought anyone who could fight back effectively. Admiral Carter stood up. Gentlemen, Ms. Wright, I want full reports on everything you observed. Every detail, no matter how small. We have 6 months to give them our answer. What are you thinking, Admiral? Susan Wright asked. Carter looked out the window at the alien ships in the distance. I'm thinking the Coalition has made some very interesting assumptions about humanity. They believe our politeness indicates weakness. They think our questions show desperation. They assume we need their protection because we haven't immediately accepted their offer. She turned back to the group. What they don't realize is that we're being polite because we can afford to be. We're asking questions because we want to understand exactly what we're dealing with. And we're taking time to consider their offer Because we have the luxury of choice. Dr. Bell smiled grimly. They think we're begging. Exactly, Carter said. And as long as they believe that, they'll keep underestimating us. 6 months should be enough time to learn everything we need to know about the Galactic Coalition. By the time we give them our answer, we'll know exactly what we're refusing. Captain Morrison looked confused. Refusing, Admiral? 3 months had passed since the first meeting with the Coalition. Commander Alex Turner stood on the bridge of the UNS Guardian, watching alien ships strip mine asteroids in the outer solar system. His jaw was tight with anger, but his orders were clear. Observe and document only. Sir, the Vraxi mining vessel just finished with asteroid Delta 7, reported Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez from her tactical station. They're moving toward the next cluster. How much did they take? Turner asked. Everything valuable, iron, nickel, rare earth metals. They left nothing but rock dust. Ensign Chris Parker looked up from his communications console. Commander, I'm picking up transmissions between the mining ships. They're talking about how easy this is. One of them said the humans are too scared to stop them. Turner felt his hands clench into fists. What else are they saying, Chris? They're joking about how weak we are. One Vraxi said humans remind him of the Kalari when they first joined the Coalition. Apparently the Kalari tried to negotiate too, right up until the Coalition took over their home world. The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. The Coalition wasn't offering partnership. They were preparing for conquest. Sir, Maya said quietly, my weapon systems are ready. We could disable those mining ships in minutes. Stand down, Lieutenant, Turner replied, though every instinct told him to attack. Our orders are to observe only. Admiral Carter knows what she's doing. Turner hoped he was right. For 3 months, they had watched Coalition ships treat human space like their own territory. Vraxi miners stripped asteroid belts clean. Threnody science vessels established monitoring stations near Jupiter's moons. Ships from other Coalition species arrived daily, calling themselves cultural exchange missions but obviously gathering intelligence, and humanity did nothing but watch. On Earth, Dr. Ryan Bell was having a very different kind of day. His laboratory was filled with captured Coalition technology, gifts from their alien visitors who wanted to show humanity what they could gain from membership. Bell smiled as he examined a Vraxi computer core. It was supposed to be advanced technology, proof of Coalition superiority. Jenny, come look at this, he called to his assistant, Dr. Jennifer Stone. She walked over, wiping her hands on a lab towel. What did you find now? This computer core is supposed to power their mining ships. Look at the processing speed. Bell showed her the readout on his scanner. It's running at about 12% of our standard AI systems, and the programming is incredibly basic. Jennifer leaned closer. Basic how? No adaptive learning, no creative problem solving, no independent decision making. It's like they're still using computers from our early 21st century, just with better materials. What about their faster than light travel? Bell pulled up another set of readings. Brute force. They punch holes through space using massive amounts of energy. Our quantum drive systems use 90% less power and travel twice as fast. Jennifer frowned. If their technology is so primitive, how did they build such a large empire? That's the question, isn't it? Bell said. I've been analyzing data on Coalition member species. Every single one was technologically inferior to the Coalition when they joined. The Coalition has never faced anyone with equal or better technology. So they're bullies who only pick fights they know they can win. Exactly. And they think we're another easy target. Across the city, General Patricia Hayes was meeting with Earth's military commanders in a secure underground facility. The room was filled with displays showing Coalition ship movements, weapon signatures, and tactical assessments. Report, Colonel Martinez, Hayes said to her intelligence chief. Colonel Maria Martinez stood up. The Coalition has 47 ships in our system now. They're positioned around key resources and strategic points. It looks like they're preparing for occupation rather than negotiation. What about their military capabilities? Overrated, said Admiral Frank Cooper, head of the Space Fleet. Their ships are large and intimidating, but they're designed for fighting primitives. Heavy armor, powerful but slow weapons, minimal maneuverability. They've never had to fight an enemy with advanced tactics or superior technology. Drolkey? Hayes nodded. How are our preparations going? Defense grid is 90% complete, Cooper replied. All ships are equipped with new quantum weapons and gravitational shields. Ground forces have been quietly mobilized under the cover of routine training exercises. What about the other coalition species? Any weaknesses we can exploit? Colonel Martinez activated a holographic display. The coalition isn't as united as they pretend. We've intercepted communications showing significant tension between member species. The Vraxi and Threnodi make all the decisions. Everyone else just follows orders and resents it. Interesting, Hayes said. Keep monitoring those communications. When this situation develops, we might need allies. Meanwhile, in space near Neptune, the UNS Guardian continued its patrol. Commander Turner was reviewing reports when Chris Parker called out from his station. Sir, I'm receiving a priority transmission from Earth. Admiral Carter wants to speak with you directly. Turner took the communication in his private office. Admiral Carter's face appeared on the screen, and she looked, tired but determined. Commander Turner, I know this has been difficult for you and your crew. Watching the coalition take what they want while we do nothing goes against everything we stand for. Yes, ma'am. The crew is getting restless. They want to fight. Soon. Alex, soon. But first I need you to understand what we're really doing out there. Every time you retreat from a coalition ship, you're gathering intelligence. Every scan, every recorded conversation, every tactical observation is helping us prepare. Turner leaned forward. Prepare for what, Admiral? Carter's expression grew cold. For the moment when they realized human politeness was never about weakness, it was about giving them every chance to walk away. Are we going to war? Commander, we've been at war for 3 months. The coalition just doesn't know it yet. Back on the UNS Guardian's bridge, Maya Rodriguez was analyzing the latest coalition ship movements when she noticed something interesting. Chris, take a look at this communication pattern, she said, transferring data to his console. Chris studied the information. They're using a very basic encryption system. I could break this in my sleep. Do it, but don't let them know we're listening. 20 minutes later, Chris had full access to coalition communications in the solar system. What he heard made him call Commander Turner immediately. Sir, you need to hear this. The coalition commanders are planning something big. Turner arrived. On the bridge quickly. What do you have? They're calling it Integration Day. 3 weeks from now, they plan to present humanity with an ultimatum. Join the coalition immediately or face military action. Maya looked up from her console. Sir, there are more ships coming. Long-range sensors show another fleet approaching from outside the system. 50 vessels, maybe more. Turner felt his stomach drop. How long until they arrive? 2 weeks, sir. Turner stared at the tactical display. Soon, there would be almost 100 coalition warships in human space. If Earth was planning to fight, they were running out of time. Chris, send a coded message to Admiral Carter. Tell her the coalition timeline has moved up. Maya, I want continuous scans of every coalition ship in the system. If we're going to fight these people, we need to know exactly what we're facing. Sir, Maya said, what if we can't win? What if there are just too many of them? Turner looked at his young tactical officer. She was barely 25, fresh from the academy, and asking the question they were all thinking. Maya, I've served with humans for 20 years. We've never been the strongest or the fastest or the most numerous, but we've always been the smartest, the most adaptable, and the most stubborn. The coalition thinks our patience means we're weak. They're about to learn the difference between patience and preparation. On Earth, Admiral Carter was finishing her own preparations. She stood in the command center beneath Geneva, watching. Displays that showed every human ship, weapon system, and defensive position in the solar system. Dr. Bell's intelligence reports covered one wall. General Hayes's military assessments covered another. Admiral, said her aide, Lieutenant Tony Brooks. The President is asking for a final briefing before we respond to the coalition. Carter nodded. Tell him we'll be ready. The Coalition has spent 3 months showing us exactly who they are. Now it's time to show them who we are. She looked at the display showing Coalition ships scattered throughout the solar system. They thought they were in position to conquer humanity. Instead, they had placed themselves exactly where Earth's military wanted them. 47 ships, she said to herself. Against a species they think is desperate and weak, they have no idea what's about to hit them. Outside, Coalition ships continued their preparations for Integration Day, confident that humanity would surrender when faced with overwhelming force. After all, it had worked on every other species they had encountered, but humanity was not every other species, and the Coalition was about to learn why patience, politeness, and preparation made for the most dangerous combination in the galaxy. 6 months had passed since first contact. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the communication center beneath Geneva, looking at the largest display screen in the room. On it were the faces of leaders from every Coalition world. Hive Speaker Zakth and Crystal Mind Veltar sat at the center, with representatives from 10 other alien species arranged around them. Today was the day humanity would give its answer. "Are we ready, Admiral?" asked President David Stone, standing beside her. "Yes, sir. Dr. Bell's analysis is complete. General Hayes has all military units in position. Our response has been carefully prepared." Carter looked at the alien faces on the screen. For 6 months, they had watched humanity with growing confidence. They had seen human ships retreat whenever approached. They had heard human diplomats use respectful, careful language. They had observed human colonies making no aggressive moves despite obvious territorial violations. They thought they understood humanity perfectly. Hive Speaker Zakth, Crystal Mind Veltar, honored representatives of the Galactic Coalition, Carter began, her voice calm and professional. After careful consideration, humanity has reached its decision regarding Coalition membership. The aliens leaned forward. Zakth's multiple eyes focused intently on the screen. Veltar's crystalline body pulsed with expectant blue light. Earth appreciates the Coalition's generous offer, Carter continued. We are honored that such a powerful alliance would consider including our species. However, after thorough deliberation, humanity must respectfully decline membership in the Galactic Coalition. Silence filled both the Human Command Center and the Coalition Council chamber. For several seconds, no one spoke. The concept of refusal was so foreign to Coalition experience that they needed time to process what they had heard. Zakth was the first to respond. Admiral Carter, perhaps there has been a translation error. Did you say humanity is refusing Coalition membership? That is correct, Hive Speaker. While we value the relationship we have built over these past months, Earth's interests are best served through independence. We look forward to peaceful coexistence and mutually beneficial trade relationships with any Coalition species interested in such arrangements. Crystal Mind Veltar's light shifted to a harsh red color. Admiral, you may not understand the full implications of this decision. The galaxy can be dangerous for unprotected species. Without Coalition membership, humanity would face these dangers alone. Carter smiled politely. We appreciate your concern for our welfare. However, humanity is confident in our ability to handle whatever challenges we may encounter. We prefer to face those challenges as a free and independent species. On the Coalition side, whispered conversations broke out among the various species representatives. The translation systems picked up fragments. Unprecedented, impossible, they don't understand. A new voice spoke up. General Thrackmore of the Gorvani warrior species stepped into view. He was nearly 3 meters tall, covered in thick scales with 4 arms ending in clawed hands. His species served as the Coalition's primary military force. Admiral Carter, Thrackmore said, his voice deep and threatening. Perhaps your species needs time to reconsider. The Coalition has ways of helping confused civilizations understand their situation more clearly. President Stone stepped forward. General Thrackmore, is the Coalition threatening Earth? Not threatening, Thrackmore replied. Educating. Sometimes, young species need lessons in galactic reality. Admiral Carter's expression didn't change, but everyone in the command center could feel the temperature drop. General, Are you suggesting that the Coalition would use military force against a peaceful species that has committed no hostile acts? The Coalition maintains order, Zakth interjected quickly. Sometimes order requires firm guidance. See? Carter said. Then let me be very clear about humanity's position. Earth seeks peaceful relationships with all species. We have no territorial ambitions beyond our own solar system. We threaten no one and ask only to be left alone to develop, as we choose. Isolation is not possible, Veltar declared, his light now pulsing angry red. All civilized species must contribute to galactic society. The Coalition provides structure and purpose. The Coalition provides slavery with better marketing, Dr. Bell muttered quietly, standing behind Carter. Carter heard him but continued speaking calmly. We understand the Coalition's perspective. However, humanity has chosen a different path. We hope the Coalition will respect our decision. Thrackmore laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Respect must be earned, humans. Your species has shown nothing but weakness and fear. You retreat from our ships. You speak with careful words like frightened children. You have no military strength worth mentioning. President Stone looked at Admiral Carter. She gave him a tiny nod. General Thrackmore, Stone said. You seem to have misunderstood human behavior. We retreat from your ships to avoid unnecessary conflict, not from fear. We speak carefully because we believe in diplomacy before violence. As for our military strength, we prefer not to display it unless absolutely necessary. Empty words, Thrackmore growled. Weak species always claim hidden strength they do not possess. Admiral Carter stepped closer to the camera. General, let me ask you something. In your long military career, have you ever fought an enemy with technology superior to your own? Thrackmore's scaled face twisted in confusion. Superior technology? The Coalition possesses the most advanced weapons and ships in the galaxy. That wasn't my question. Have you ever fought someone stronger than you? Impossible. The Coalition is supreme. Carter nodded slowly. That explains a great deal. General Hayes, could you join us, please? General Patricia Hayes stepped into view of the camera. Unlike Carter's diplomatic uniform, Hayes wore full military dress, with ribbons and medals covering her chest. General Thrackmore, Hayes said. My name is Patricia Hayes, Supreme Commander of Earth's military forces. Admiral Carter has been handling diplomatic relations with your people. Now that diplomacy has apparently failed, this conversation falls under my authority. Thrackmore studied the human general with new interest. You think to threaten the mighty Coalition with your primitive weapons? I'm not threatening anyone, Hayes replied calmly. I'm simply informing you that Earth's diplomatic phase has ended. Any further Coalition military activity in human space will be considered an act of war. The Coalition representatives erupted in outraged chatter. Zakth's clicking grew rapid and agitated. Veltar's light flickered between red and orange. Representatives from other species made sounds of disbelief and anger. You cannot declare war on the Coalition, Zakth finally managed to say. Your species lacks the strength to oppose us. General Hayes smiled coldly. Hive speaker, you've spent 6 months studying humanity. Tell me, what have you learned about our military capabilities? Zakth paused, suddenly uncertain. Your ships are small and few in number. Your weapons appear primitive. Your tactics are defensive and weak. And yet, Hayes continued, in 6 months of observation, how many human military installations have you actually located? How many of our weapons have you successfully analyzed? How many of our ships have you been able to track when they didn't want to be found? The silence stretched longer this time. Coalition intelligence had indeed failed to gather much concrete information about human military strength. They had assumed this was because there was little to find. Dr. Bell stepped forward. Perhaps I can help clarify the situation. General Thrackmore, your ship's computers are running at 12% the speed of our standard systems. Your weapons use 90% more energy than ours while delivering half the impact. Your faster-than-light drives are so inefficient that our cargo ships could outrun your fastest warships. Impossible. Veltar's light flared bright red. Coalition technology is supreme. Coalition technology, Bell continued calmly, is adequate for bullying primitive civilizations. Against peers or superiors, it's completely useless. President Stone addressed the coalition leaders directly. Here's what's going to happen. All coalition ships will leave human space within 72 hours. Any vessels remaining after that deadline will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. You dare give ultimatums to the coalition? Thrackmore roared. We're being polite, Stone replied. The alternative is to simply destroy your ships now and explain ourselves later. Admiral Carter stepped back into view. The coalition has a choice. Accept that humanity wishes to remain independent and withdraw peacefully, or discover why a truly advanced civilization doesn't need to join alliances for protection. Zacht's voice became dangerously quiet. Are you suggesting that humanity considers itself superior to the coalition? I'm suggesting, Carter replied, that humanity has never needed the coalition's protection because we're quite capable of protecting ourselves. We've been polite about it because we prefer peaceful solutions, but politeness should never be mistaken for weakness. General Thrackmore stepped closer to his camera. The coalition has destroyed civilizations that showed less arrogance than yours humans. We have a fleet of 200 warships. You have what, 50 small vessels? General Hayes laughed softly. General, you've been watching our patrol ships and thinking they represented our full military strength. That's adorable. How many ships do you have? Thrackmore demanded. 71 hours had passed. The coalition fleet had not left human space. Fleet Commander Thrackmore stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds, watching the pathetic human response to his armada. 200 coalition warships, hung in space near Earth's moon, the largest military force ever assembled in coalition history. Ships from all 12 member species had answered the call, ready to teach humanity a lesson about galactic reality. Facing them were 47 human vessels. Pitiful, muttered Captain Vexhall of the Threnody crystal ships. They couldn't even muster 50 ships to defend their homeworld. Look at the size of them, laughed Commander Saktor from his Vraxi hive ship. Our smallest frigate is larger than their biggest vessel. Thrackmore studied the human formation through his tactical display. The Earth ships had arranged themselves in a loose defensive grid between the coalition fleet and their planet. It was a standard defensive position, but hopelessly outnumbered. Human Admiral Carter, Thrackmore broadcast, your 72 hours have expired. The coalition offers one final chance for surrender. Submit to coalition authority and your species will be treated with appropriate mercy. On the bridge of the UNS Horizon, Admiral Carter listened to the ultimatum with the same calm expression she had maintained for months. Captain Jake Morrison stood beside her, along with the same team that had handled first contact 6 months ago. Admiral, Morrison said quietly, all ships report ready. Defense platforms are online. Ground installations are prepared. Thank you, Captain. Carter activated the communication system. Fleet Commander Thrackmore, humanity appreciates the coalition's continued interest in our welfare. However, our position remains unchanged. We request that coalition forces withdraw from human space immediately. Thrackmore's laughter boomed across the communication channel. Admiral, you face 200 warships with less than 50 vessels. Your bravery is admirable but pointless. Surrender now and avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Commander, Carter replied, you seem to believe that ship numbers determine battle outcomes. This suggests your military experience has been limited to fighting primitive civilizations. The coalition is supreme, roared Thrackmore. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. How many of those worlds fought back effectively? Carter asked. The question hung in space like a challenge. Thrackmore realized he couldn't answer it. Every coalition victory had been against technologically inferior opponents who couldn't offer meaningful resistance. On the UNS Guardian, Commander Alex Turner watched the coalition ships through his tactical display. His crew had been monitoring alien communications for hours, listening to their confidence and arrogance. Sir, reported Chris Parker from communications, coalition ships are moving into attack formation. Fleet Commander Thrackmore is ordering all vessels to prepare for assault. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez checked her weapon systems. Sir, I'm reading massive energy buildups across the Coalition fleet. They're charging every weapon they have. Turner nodded grimly. Maya, are our new systems ready? Yes, sir. Gravitational. Weapons are online. Quantum torpedoes are loaded. Phase shields are at full power. What about the experimental nanite deployment system? Ready for field testing, Commander? Turner opened a channel to Admiral Carter. Admiral, Coalition forces are preparing to attack. All Guardian systems are ready. Thank you, Alex. Stand by for the execute order. Across the human fleet, similar conversations were taking place. Captain Jennifer Wells of the UNS Defiance checked her ship's new gravitational cannon. Captain Brian Murphy of the UNS Retribution confirmed his quantum weapon arrays were online. Captain Nancy Foster of the UNS Vengeance reported her nanite. Swarm launchers were prepared. The human ships looked small and fragile compared to the massive Coalition vessels, but appearances could be deceiving. Fleet Commander Thrackmore had grown tired of human defiance. These primitives needed to learn their place in the galactic order. He opened a fleet-wide channel. All Coalition vessels prepare for coordinated assault. Target the human ships first, then their orbital installations. Show them the price of refusing the Coalition's generous offer. 200 alien warships powered up their weapons. Energy readings spiked across the electromagnetic spectrum as plasma cannons, particle beams, and kinetic projectile systems came online. The Coalition had enough firepower to turn a small moon into dust. Human Admiral Carter. Thrackmore broadcast one final time. Last chance for surrender. In 60 seconds, the Coalition fleet will demonstrate why resistance is futile. Admiral. Carter's response was calm and measured. Fleet Commander Thrackmore, humanity regrets that diplomatic solutions have been exhausted. However, we will defend ourselves against any unprovoked attack. 60 seconds, Thrackmore announced. Carter opened a private channel to her fleet commanders. All vessels, this is Admiral Carter. You know your missions, you know what humanity is capable of. Show them why advanced civilizations don't need to join alliances for protection. 30 seconds. Thrackmore continued his countdown. On Coalition ships throughout the fleet, weapons officers made final targeting adjustments. The humans had arranged their ships in predictable defensive positions. This would be a massacre. 10 seconds. Admiral Carter spoke one word. Execute. What happened next lasted exactly 14 minutes and changed the balance of power in local space forever. The UNS Horizon opened fire first. Captain Morrison's ship deployed its gravitational weapons, devices that manipulated spacetime itself to tear enemy vessels apart at the molecular level. 3 Vraxi hive ships simply disintegrated as their molecular bonds failed catastrophically. The UNS Guardian fired quantum torpedoes that phased through Coalition shields as if they didn't exist. The weapons materialized inside enemy hulls and exploded, destroying ships from within. 4 Threnody crystal vessels shattered like glass hit by hammers. The UNS Defiance used its gravitational cannon to create tiny black holes that consumed everything around them before safely evaporating. 2 massive Gorvani battleships collapsed into nothingness in seconds. But the most terrifying human weapon was also the smallest. Dr. Bell's scientific vessels released clouds of nanite swarms, microscopic machines that swarmed over Coalition ships and systematically dismantled their electronics, weapons, and life support systems. Entire vessels went dark as their technology was consumed and recycled. Fleet Commander Thrackmore watched in horror as his magnificent armada was destroyed around him. Coalition weapons fired desperately at human ships, but the energy beams and plasma bolts passed harmlessly through phase shields that existed slightly outside normal space. Impossible, Thrackmore roared. Our weapons aren't even touching them. Sir, his tactical officer reported, voice shaking with fear. We've lost 60 ships in 3 minutes. Their weapons are unlike anything in Coalition databases. All ships, retreat, Thrackmore ordered. Fall back to safe distance. But there was no safe distance. Human ships moved with impossible speed and precision, appearing wherever Coalition vessels tried to flee. The hunter had become the hunted. Commander Turner watched Coalition ships attempt to escape his patrol area. Chris, are they trying to run? Yes, sir. Fleet Commander Thrackmore is ordering full retreat. That's unfortunate, Turner said calmly. Maya, deploy wide-area nanite screen. Make sure no Coalition ship leaves this system with intelligence about our capabilities. Yes, sir. Clouds of nanites spread across space like an invisible net, catching fleeing Coalition vessels and shutting down their systems. Ships that had been desperately trying to escape suddenly found themselves dead in space, powerless and defenseless. On the Destroyer of Worlds, Thrackmore realized his flagship was surrounded by human vessels barely a tenth its size. His massive warship, pride of the Coalition fleet, sat helpless as nanites swarmed over its hull. This is impossible, he whispered. No civilization possesses such technology. Admiral Carter's voice came over the communication system. Fleet Commander Thrackmore, the Coalition fleet has been neutralized. All surviving vessels will stand down immediately and prepare to be boarded. You cannot have defeated us so easily, Thrackmore protested. The Coalition is supreme. Commander, Carter replied, the Coalition has spent centuries fighting primitive civilizations with inferior technology. You've never faced an opponent with advanced weapons, superior tactics, or the will to use them effectively. Around the Destroyer of Worlds, Coalition ships floated powerless in space. 200 vessels had been reduced to helpless hulks in less than 15 minutes. Not a single human ship had suffered significant damage. Captain Morrison opened a channel to the Coalition flagship. Commander Thrackmore, this is Captain Morrison of the UNS Horizon. Prepare to receive boarding parties. Any resistance will be met with immediate destruction. You're going to capture us? Thrackmore asked, disbelief clear in his voice. We're going to treat you exactly as humanity has always treated others, Morrison replied, with appropriate courtesy and respect for the laws of war. Your wounded will receive medical care. Your survivors will be housed comfortably. Your ships will be studied to better understand Coalition technology. Why? Thrackmore asked. Why? Show mercy to defeated enemies? Admiral Carter answered. Because that's what civilized species do, Commander. The news traveled faster than light across the galaxy. The mighty Coalition fleet, 200 ships strong, had been destroyed by a species they had considered primitive. In 14 minutes, humanity had shattered assumptions that had stood for centuries. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the communication center beneath Geneva, watching as panic spread through Coalition space. Emergency sessions were being called on every Coalition world. Military commanders were demanding explanations. Member species were asking questions they had never dared ask before. Admiral, reported Lieutenant Tony Brooks, we're receiving communication requests from 17 different Coalition worlds. They all want to speak with Earth directly, not through Coalition leadership. Interesting, Carter said. What about the Coalition High Command? Hive Speaker Zack and Crystal Mine Veltar are demanding immediate release of their captured fleet. They're claiming the attack was unprovoked aggression. Carter smiled coldly. Unprovoked? They brought 200 warships to our home system and issued ultimatums. I'd say that's fairly provocative. President David Stone entered the communication center, followed by Dr. Ryan Bell and General Patricia Hayes. The past week had been busy for everyone as they dealt with the aftermath of the Coalition's defeat. How are our guests doing? Stone asked, referring to the captured Coalition personnel. Surprisingly well, Carter replied. Medical teams have treated all their wounded. The crews are housed in comfortable quarters. Many of them seem confused by how well they're being treated. Dr. Bell pulled up a report on his tablet. I've been interviewing the prisoners. Most of them have never seen an enemy show mercy to defeated opponents. The Coalition's usual practice is complete destruction or enslavement. What about Fleet Commander Thrackmore? General Hayes asked. He's been the most interesting case, Carter said. For the first 3 days, he kept demanding to know when the torture would begin. When we explained that humans don't torture prisoners, he accused us of lying. It took him 4 days to believe we were serious about treating him humanely. President Stone looked at the communication board showing all the incoming requests. I think it's time to address the galaxy directly. Set up a general broadcast. Carter nodded to her communications team. Within minutes, the signal was being transmitted to every inhabited system in local space. President Stone stepped in front of the camera. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began. "I am David Stone, President of Earth. 1 week ago, the Galactic Coalition sent a fleet of 200 warships to force humanity into unwilling membership. That fleet was defeated when it attacked our home system." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Today, I want to address the assumptions that led to this conflict. The Coalition believed that humanity was weak because we were polite. They thought our diplomatic courtesy indicated desperation. They assumed our patience meant we had no choice but to accept their terms." Stone looked directly into the camera. "They were wrong on every count. Humanity was polite because we believed in giving others every chance to choose cooperation over conflict. We were patient because we could afford to be. We sought diplomatic solutions because we were strong enough to defend ourselves if diplomacy failed. On coalition worlds throughout local space, billions of beings watched the human leader speak. Many had never heard a non-coalition perspective before. The galaxy has lived under coalition rule for centuries," Stone continued. "Member species provide labor and resources, while coalition leadership makes all decisions. This is not alliance. This is not partnership. This is exploitation disguised as protection. Earth offers a different model. We propose genuine cooperation between equals. Species that join with humanity will maintain their independence, their cultures, and their right to make their own decisions. We seek partners, not servants." The broadcast ended, but its effects were immediate. On the aquatic world of Kalara, the blue-skinned Kalari people gathered in their underwater cities to discuss what they had heard. For generations, they had provided rare minerals to the Coalition, while receiving only basic technology in return. "Did you hear what the human leader said?" asked Tide Speaker Refin to his council. "Partners, not servants. When has the Coalition ever called us partners?" "Never," replied Deep Singer Valuna. "They call us useful resources." Within hours, the Kalari government sent a secret message to Earth. They wanted to know more about this genuine cooperation humanity offered. Similar conversations were happening across Coalition space. The silicon-based Mindari compared their forced labor conditions to what humans promised. The insectoid Zephyrians remembered their own failed rebellion against Coalition rule decades ago. On the crystalline world of Threnod, Crystal Mind Veltar faced his most serious political crisis in centuries. Other Threnodi leaders were demanding explanations for the military disaster. "How could a primitive species defeat our greatest fleet?" demanded Crystal Elder Shalteth. "Their technology was beyond our understanding," Veltar admitted. "Our weapons could not even damage their ships." "Then perhaps they are not as primitive as we believed." On the Vraxi Hive world, Hive Speaker Zacht was having similar problems. Worker drones were questioning orders for the first time in Vraxi history. If the Coalition could be defeated so easily, what did that say about Coalition strength? Captain Jake Morrison was experiencing the changes firsthand. His ship, the UNS Horizon, had become the flagship for humanity's first diplomatic mission to Coalition space. But instead of traveling as supplicants seeking membership, they were moving as the dominant power in local space. "Captain," reported Communications Officer Beth Taylor, "we're receiving another request for protection. The Mindari government wants Earth to establish a defense platform in their system." "That's the 5th request today," Morrison said. "How many Coalition member species have contacted us now?" 8 out of 12, sir. Only the Vraxi, Threnodi, Gorvani, and Nixari remain loyal to Coalition leadership. Dr. Bell, who was traveling with the diplomatic mission, looked up from his analysis. "That makes sense. Those 4 species hold leadership positions in the Coalition. The other 8 are essentially subjects, not members." Morrison opened a channel to Admiral Carter back on Earth. "Admiral, the Coalition is fragmenting faster than we expected. We may need to accelerate our protection timeline." "Understood, Jake. General Hayes is already mobilizing the protection fleet. We'll have defense platforms in friendly systems within 2 weeks." The first test of the new paradigm came when Vraxi ships attempted to enforce Coalition authority on the rebellious Kalari. 3 Vraxi hive ships appeared in the Kalara system, demanding that the aquatic people end their communications with Earth and return to Coalition service. The Kalari response was swift. They activated the emergency beacon Earth had provided, calling for human protection. Commander Alex Turner, now commanding the UNS Guardian in Kalari space, received the distress call. All stations battle ready. Vraxi vessels are threatening our allies. The confrontation was brief. When Vraxi hive ships opened fire on Kalari underwater cities, the Guardian responded with quantum torpedoes. 2 hive ships were destroyed instantly. The third attempted to flee but was disabled by gravitational weapons. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez, now promoted to commander, led the boarding party that captured the surviving Vraxi crew. Like previous Coalition prisoners, they were treated humanely and offered medical care. The message was clear. Earth would protect its allies with the same devastating effectiveness it had used to defend itself. Word of Kalari's successful protection spread quickly. Within days, 6 more Coalition member species formally requested Earth's protection. The Coalition's authority was collapsing as species realized they had alternatives. Fleet Commander Thrackmore, still imprisoned on Earth but treated as an honored guest rather than a criminal, requested a meeting with Admiral Carter. She found him in the comfortable quarters assigned to high-ranking prisoners. "Admiral Carter," Thrackmore said, "I have spent weeks trying to understand your species. Why do you show mercy to defeated enemies? Why do you offer protection without demanding submission?" Carter sat across from the massive Gorvani warrior. "Because that's what strength is actually for, Commander. True power isn't about forcing others to serve you. It's about having the ability to protect those who can't protect themselves. The Coalition has always ruled through fear. And look where that led. Your greatest fleet destroyed by a species you thought was weak. Half your member species asking for our protection instead of yours. Fear is a poor foundation for lasting power." Thrackmore was quiet for a long moment. "What will happen to the Coalition?" "That depends on what the Coalition chooses to do," Carter replied. "Species that want genuine partnership will find it with Earth. Those that prefer the old ways of domination and exploitation will discover that those days are ending, and if the Coalition leadership refuses to change..." Carter's expression grew serious. "Then they'll learn what every bully eventually learns. There's always someone stronger." 3 months after the 14-minute battle, the galactic political map had completely changed. 8 former Coalition species had joined the Terran Alliance under Earth's protection. The remaining 4 Coalition species found themselves isolated and weakened.